Thank you for coming. All right. And now it is again my pleasure to introduce emotional intelligence and award-winning director, Tony Sacchardi, DTM, who will help you take your speech delivery to the next level. It is my pleasure. Let's welcome Tony Sacchardi.
Thank you, Janice. And before we go further, I'd like to introduce also Birgit Starmanns, who's going to be doing this with me. I cannot see her on the gallery view right now. I'm going to switch to speaker view, and I will invite you also to switch to speaker view so you can see the speakers. And so I'm going to explain a little bit what we're going to do today. We're going to take risk. We're going to go beyond what we usually do. That's the idea, to stretch you. When, let's say, if you've been speaking for a while at Toastmasters, you were at a certain point, you've made some progress, and in a couple of years from now, you're going to make some more progress. It's going to be a straight line trajectory if nothing else happens. Today, something is going to happen. Will make you go beyond your self-belief. You will make you go beyond what you think you can do, and the trajectory is going to change. It's not going to be a straight line. It's going to go up like this. That's what we're trying to accomplish today. So as leaders, Birgit and I will do our job. We'll lead the best we can. But for you as participants, we're also asking you to do your best, to really participate the best you can. Birgit, can I give it to you?
Sure. Thank you, Tony. So yeah, I'm very excited to be doing this together with Tony. I think we've led some workshops together before in the past. And I would say from my perspective, also, I want to take a little bit more look at your body actions. So whether you as a speaker are sitting or standing, so I've set myself up over there to stand. So you might see a twin of mine on, but I'm only going to be streaming from one at a time. So basically I did that so that if you're sitting as a speaker, I can better show you what I'm talking about while I'm sitting. If you're standing as a speaker, I can show you better what I'm talking about when you're standing, but also trying to get rid of the very cliche movements that we all have. I'll give you a great example. At my company, we had a conference and Dana Carvey was speaking as, I guess, part of the entertainment of the keynote. And the first thing that he did was just take huge steps across the stage, and he kept using his hands the same way. And he commented, why does every executive have to walk in 10 big steps across the entire stage? And why do they always have this hand gesture? It was hilarious. And that was our CEO to a T. So instead of really just having the same kind of traditional gestures, I'm going to try to see what you're doing and see how we can enhance that with some different kinds of body actions. And that's why we're not calling it gestures. That's why we're calling it body actions. Back to you, Tony.
Thanks, Birgit. And what I would like to add also is that we're going to work, the reason we're doing this is because now that we're on Zoom, we're losing a little bit of the presence that we have when we're on stage. And when you're on Zoom, it's even more important to be authentic. So we're going to work on emotions because that's what makes your face move. The facial expression that you have, it's caused by emotions. If you're trying to fake it, you're trying to smile and you don't really feel like smiling, it looks really fake. And people know that, they notice it. We've got like millions of years of training of noticing if people are telling us the truth or not with their body, their voice, and their face. So we want you to be authentic as much as possible. So the work will be to recreate real emotions so that it can support your speech and the body movement, the body action that goes with it. So that's what we're going to work on. According to Paul Ekman, there are about 5 emotions. There is anger, sadness, joy, disgust, and fear. Those are the five basic emotions. And he went all through the world to take pictures of people manifesting those emotions. He would scare someone and take a picture. And surprisingly, it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're part of our civilization or not, like living in the Amazon forest or at the other end of the world or here, we all make the same facial expressions when we are afraid, when we are angry, when we are sad. So it's really a way to communicate how you feel. And that's what we're going to try to work on today. So do we have a volunteer to start?
Drum roll. There's somebody who said she has to leave early. I think we need to
Ooh,
give
I
her a
remember
shot.
that.
Hint, hint.
Sure.
But you don't have to go first if you don't want to, but
It's
just
okay. It's
throwing
fine.
it out there.
Yeah. It's kind of unprepared because I didn't know what I put myself into, but I'll go with it.
All right.
Thanks, Jenna. So the idea is that you will give us a speech for about 1 minute, 1 minute and a half. And after that, we will give you some hints and things and feedback and so on. But the idea will be to do the speech again, some parts of the speech, and then the whole speech again, but really with as much, you know, emotion as you can put into it, really exaggerated. So are you ready for that?
Sure. So
All right.
I thought it would be like a table topics. So we'll just go with that. And it doesn't have to be finished, right? So
No.
how by the way, how anybody will stop me? How do I know? Where's the timer? Do you have a timer? How do I know when to stop?
Good question. We normally have a timer, and I think that's one thing that we missed. And I've been emailing about this topic all day.
I
Can
can
be
be
timer.
timer. You have to pin me. This is Lorraine. I can be timer.
Sure.
Wonderful, Lorraine.
You have to pin me. Let me
Okay.
get set up.
And could you show the signs? Like, do you have little ones, or you have the virtual background so that I know that I don't go
I have
over?
the virtual background and I can cover it up and it started, but I can reset it.
Okay. All right. Let me know when.
Does that work for you, Jana? Are you comfortable?
Sure. Yes. I just don't want to go over. All right. Let me know when to start.
Okay, let's see. Okay, you go ahead and start.
It was a hot summer evening, and I was cooking dinner thinking about my friend Anne, who was about to come over for dinner. I live in California. She lives in New York on the other coast. And I was really thinking and racking my brain, how can I surprise my guest? What can I possibly show her? Something that we in California have, and she doesn't have that in New York. And then it dawned on me, wait a second, in the backyard, there is a bush, a special bush that I know only about myself that it's growing up right here. And I've never seen it anywhere else. It's called moonflower bush. So my friend Anne arrives and we are having a conversation over a glass of wine. And then what I forgot to tell you guys is that what is so special about this moonflower bush is that the flower is blooming really from a tightly closed bud into a fully blossoming flower in less than 30 seconds. It's like Discovery Channel on my backyard. That time is up?
1 minute.
Okay, Discovery Channel on my backyard. So she arrives, we're having a conversation, and then of course, when I look outside, it's completely dark. I glance at the clock and we missed the window of opportunity. And then I remembered there was one more just like that on my front yard. So we're running outside and lo and behold, it's blossoming. All of it is blossoming. And in a second, when I'm leaning in despair against my car and the bush is right here, my friend Anne says, look. And we look up in the air and there is a bird flying right toward me. And then it zooms back and starts pollinating the flowers. And in that second, there's another bird and another bird and another bird. The whole family of hummingbirds is pollinating the flowers, and the hummingbirds are the ones that are teaching us to drink the nectar of life on an everyday basis.
Wonderful, Jenna. Thank you. Thank you so much. Birgit, if that's okay with you, I'm going to get started.
Go for it.
Okay. So it was a wonderful speech, and especially if you improvised. And you were transmitting to us your emotions through your movement, your facial expression, the tone of your voice. Now, the thing we can do with this is go a lot further. Go a lot further and make it even more wonderful than it already is. So the first thing that happens in your speech is you talk about it's warm, right? It's hot here. It's something like this. What did you say exactly?
It was a hot summer evening.
Okay, so the hot summer evening, how do you feel about it? Is it like a great summer evening, hot summer evening, you enjoy it? Or is it, fucking summer evening? What is it?
It was a little bit too hot for me. Plus,
Yeah.
I was cooking.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you feel about it? Is it bad? Is it disgusting?
It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not like super. I mean, it's California. I don't know how to describe it. A little bit. How do you feel when you are? I was excited about the guest, but it's not. It was not so much about the temperature. You're asking about the temperature, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because that's how you start your speech, and everything you say in your speech is very important. And everything you say in your speech has the potential to transform how people are listening to you.
I would say I'm excited. I was not excited about the weather. I was excited about having the guest over.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move on. So what was the next thing? It was about having the guest over and the wonderful bush that you have in your garden.
To surprise, yes. Once I got the idea that I could surprise her with that, then my excitement went up.
Okay, and how do you feel about that bush? What's so wonderful about it?
It's everything is it's like literally Discovery Channel. It's like a miracle.
Really? How do you feel when you look at it?
I can't believe my eyes every time I see that, and I know what's going to happen. It's like literally in less than 30 seconds. You look at the closed bud, and it goes, and it blossom in flower. So it's super. It's like a miracle to me. I don't know. I'm looking at it and in awe every single time.
What is awe? What does it mean to you?
It's like
like that?
Yes. Like a little kid in the candy store. It's like, oh, I can't believe my hand.
What is the best surprise you ever had as a little kid?
A doll that I was getting over. It's not Christmas for us. I was born in Russia, so over New Year's. And usually my parents would put presents under the pillow, and I peeked in the middle of the night. I woke up and I knew what I was going to get in the morning, and it's like, yay.
Can I ask you to
go just introduce the first element of doing something with your hands, right? When Tony said, oh yeah, and even then, Jana, when you went like this, because hand gestures don't always have to be kind of straight. We kind of learn that, but sometimes it's, oh, this is so great, clenching your fist, or no, I want it this way, and jazz hands. But I think that becomes very expressive when you even just use the way that you use your fingers in terms of expressing it.
Like this?
Yeah. Hey, this is my doll, almost, or this is the bush, almost outlining it, but then using your fingers, I think, instead of just putting them out there, but expressing them, I think would be, just to go along with what Tony was just saying, because you both said, this is great, and you both had the same gesture, but you didn't have that in your speech.
Okay.
And if you like, I'd like for you to go back at that time in your past when you received that wonderful present. Can you just, close your eyes for a second and go back there and remember little details, specific details about what was happening at the time, like the kind of noise that you would hear, the things that you would see. What did it smell like? Were they cooking something maybe, and it smelled like a, you know, something sweet or something else? Through your senses, going back there and reliving the feelings that you had at that time.
Are you talking about the doll
Yes, the doll.
what? Oh,
Yeah.
the doll. There were no smells. It was just it was just an excitement that I found that doll before my parents gave it to me and told me that Santa Claus brought it. So it was just that it's like I know something and I'm looking at the doll but pretending that I don't have.
How did it feel in your hands? What was the sensation of the doll?
Smooth,
Smooth?
very smooth. Yeah.
What was the color?
The color is you know, just the regular color of the plastic, but it was it was light and just with the clothes, that's what mattered. Yeah, it felt good to feel the fabric, to just touch it.
Oh, the touch, yeah, the feeling of touching it, yeah, yeah. Keep that in mind. So the idea is to do this, right? This is sense memory exercise that we use in acting. We go back to a place where we experience an emotion similar to the one we want to experience on stage. And through sense memory, touch, smell, colors, sound, we go back to that place and we start reliving some of the feelings that we had at the time. And we keep those feelings. Those feelings, we can feel them inside. I don't know where you feel them. You may feel them in your belly, in your chest, or somewhere else. It doesn't matter, but you keep that feeling and then you bring that into your speech. Do you want to redo your speech now?
I can, but okay. If that's what you want me to do, sure.
Yeah, redo it with that feeling. That feeling that something is so wonderful, so incredible that you want to share it with all of us.
Okay. And I would just to add on to that a little bit, because I really liked, you seem to kind of get your groove with your emotions when, you know, you're like pointing up at the hummingbirds and things like that. Yeah, you went off screen, obviously, because it's really difficult to do body motions while you're kind of in a little box, unfortunately. But I felt then your hands started to express a little bit more of the emotion. And yeah, even for the ending, because it's kind of heartfelt, you can even put your hand on your heart. I wouldn't do the Pledge of Allegiance with the hands out, but yeah, even just kind of grasp it to yourself because it's a very heartfelt moment. So yeah, and because you became quieter, I really like that aspect of how you changed your voice at the very end for the ending of it. You know, even lean in a little bit more. So, I mean, don't overwhelm the camera or anything, but yeah, at least make it more natural, because I felt like at that point, you kind of hit your groove a little bit with the emotions.
Okay. Should I start?
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for all your suggestions. Let's see. It was a hot summer evening. I was cooking dinner and thinking about my friend Anne, who was about to come over for dinner. And since my friend lives on the East Coast and I'm here in California, I was thinking, what can I do to surprise her? And it really came to mind until it dawned on me. Wait a second. I have a unique bush in my backyard. And that unique bush, when I look at it every single time, I go, and that bush is called the moonflower bush. So my friend arrives and we're sitting and having a conversation over a glass of wine. And what I didn't tell you, the uniqueness about this moonflower bush was that every night it would go from a tightly closed bud into a fully blossoming flower in less than 30 seconds, like this. And it's like Discovery Channel on your backyard. So back to my friend Anne, we're having a beautiful conversation, drinking wine, and lo and behold, I look outside my window and everything is dark already. So we run outside and I can see the whole bush is blossoming. We missed that window. But then I remembered the same bush I have in my front yard, and we run outside to my front yard. We're holding the glasses of wine, and of course, everything is blossoming. I lean on my back on my car, and all of a sudden my friend says, "Look," and we look in the sky, and there is a bird flying, and the whole whole family of hummingbirds starts pollinating the bush. And here is what I want to conclude. The hummingbirds, every time we see hummingbirds flying into your life, it's a reminder for us to drink the nectar of life on a daily basis.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you so much. It's really, I feel like, you know, more and more you're going through those emotions that are very subtle, and there is the authenticity coming through when you're talking to us about what's going on in the flower and so on. At the end of the speech, there is a big opportunity to create a contrast, where when you were talking about, oh, the blooming is past, like we cannot have that. That's really what I wanted to do. It's like, oh, and then after that, there's, oh, wait, there's the hummingbirds. And so it's an opportunity to go like from emotions, oh no, it's not gonna work and it's over, to, wow, look at this, it's fantastic now, I have what I want, it's even better. So it's kind of like what we're talking about. It's really go a little bit deeper and manage those transitions with more emotions, more life into it, so that we, the audience, can live it with you. But great job. I mean, in just like 2 minutes, it was like already great progress. So thank you very much. Jana, what do you want to say?
Oh, just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the coaching on the spot. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Birgit. Thank you.
Birgit, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I definitely saw a difference. I think a lot of time it's very subtle. And I think what Tony was saying about the authenticity, that's important, so that we don't manufacture things, whether it's in our voices or our faces or our bodies, right? We don't want to manufacture it. And yeah, I mean, you're such an enthusiastic person. So yeah, well, that's a great thing, right? It's a really great thing. But I think some of more of the up and down, and yeah, I saw a little bit more of that when you did it the second time also. Just, you know, you built up a little bit more, and then you came down with a more, a really heartfelt conclusion, which I liked.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, really awesome. Do we have any comments from anybody else? Once, twice? Okay. So let's go to our next candidate. Who wants to speak next?
So I see Ron's hand coming up.
Ron, okay, all right.
All right.
I know who's prepared, so if you don't raise your hand eventually, I'm just gonna call on you. All right, Ron, you raised your hand first, at least from what I could see on my screen.
Now make sure you pin the timer.
Cool. Sounds good. So should I start, or all right? All right, I'm going to give a terrible speech so you can coach me in a better way. So it was a very cold winter night, as the opposite of what Shanna was saying. And I got invited by a couple of friends to go out on the street to feed the homeless. And initially when I heard about this, I knew they'd been doing it for a while, but it was my first time. I got really nervous because I didn't know what's gonna happen. In my mind, I was thinking about, those homeless, some of them were mentally ill, they're dangerous, they might stab you with some needles. So I was not really sure about if I should do it. But eventually I decided to go for it because I really wanted to experience just helping people who need help on the street. So we went out and we basically bought all the stuff that we got from the donation, the food, the clothes, the care package. And then we just began to talk to those homeless on the street, not only giving them stuff, but also connecting with them, understanding what they are and what's happened with them, and just connecting with them. And it was extremely a touching experience for me because all of them were extremely friendly and a lot of them were in pain and suffering, but they were trying to bring the positive side of them, even though they did not have any place to stay. One lady particularly, she just stood out to me because she's homeless. She lost her home because of her lost job and because of her ex-husband, all these issues. So she became homeless, but she was still trying to take care of the people around her. And actually, she was super positive. She actually built a bookshelf and put books there so that, in her words, people can come by and read books. And she even made used to be a garbage place into a beautiful garden with the flowers. And just by looking at it, and it makes me feel how positive she was, even though she was in that situation. And then by the end, when we left, she told us something that was so touching. And she just told me that, you know what, sometimes when people passing by, they're trying to avoid making eye contact with me. But you doing so, it makes me feel human again. And I was really touched by these words. And since then, I've been helping homeless a lot. Every weekend, I just went out with my friends to give some food to the homeless. And I highly encourage all of you to do something similar to help people who are in need.
Birgit, you want to start this time?
Yeah.
I can start this time. So I thought the subject was super emotional. So I think Tony's probably going to ask you some questions in terms of really how you felt. I think from just a body gesture and actions perspective, I only saw the tips of your hands, but I kind of felt it was kind of the same thing the whole time, and you're not really using your body to underscore your actual content. Yeah, we're not trying to be a mime. We're not trying to, here's a picture of the books or anything like that. But I think you could even benefit. I think we're so used to in Zoom trying to stare down the camera to have eye contact that we forget that we can actually move side to side a little bit. I mean, not standing and swaying, but even when you're talking about, I'm talking to her or I'm looking at her bookshelf, and instead of I know you're kind of probably thinking, I'm trying to use my hands, but then it ended up being not really underscoring the emotionality of it. Yeah, and I think at the end it was great because at the end when you're trying to get us to do, here's kind of what she was saying about the eye contact. I think there it's great that you didn't do anything, because sometimes the most effective thing is to have the pause or the space or the white space, even in terms of movement. You're not trying to fill everything with some kind of a movement. But I would say try to connect more to what your story is. If you are not on Zoom, how would you actually be doing that? I mean, we all tend to talk with our hands. You know, I think I've got some Italian friends that do it more than others, but I mean, it kind of underscores your story. And yeah, I felt like you felt a little trapped in that little box within Zoom, if that makes any sense at all. So Tony, do you want to continue?
Yes. So, Ron, I was listening to the speech, and it's. I feel like you showed us like the tip of the iceberg, and there is so much more underneath, so much more that you haven't shown us. And I have a couple of questions for you. This is a topic that's very deep. When I was listening to you, I felt like, you know, this is something that can make me cry. That's the kind of speech you propose here. And I wanted to ask you, what is it that you want from your audience, the people who are listening to you when you do that speech? What do you want them to experience? What action do you want them to take at the end of the speech? What do you want from your audience?
Well, I mean, Tony, definitely I want them to kind of feel the sense of, you know, not all the homeless are, at least my emotional journey, initially I thought they were dangerous, but turns out they're not. They're actually very caring and positive people. So that's kind of the transition for me in terms of how I think about the homeless. And also I do want them to think more, thank you for jumping, to think about more about, you know, this homeless situation and potentially help out a little bit in the future.
Yeah, wonderful. So that's your goal. And I think the way to bring us there is to tell us your journey. So you can to a place where, oh, you know, the homeless, I don't want to deal with them. They're dangerous, you know, they're unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen with them. And that's you before you had such a point of view. And I think what I'd like to see in your speech is for you to go a little bit further with that, to really bring that side of you before that said, homeless, well, I'm not dealing with that. And then see the transformation, you know, allow us to see the transformation at the end, that once you've done that, you've been able to listen to that person, how it transformed you and how you became a different person with a different point of view regarding the homeless. And now your feelings about the homeless is very different from what it was at the beginning. And that too, you can go a little bit further with that. I felt like when you were talking at the end, there was something really emotional. And I feel like you can bring it even more to the surface. I don't know how it's going to manifest. It could be a facial expression, could be the tone of your voice, could be tears, it could be movement, or all of them at the same time. But I feel you can allow yourself to unleash it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually Tony almost demonstrated some of those things, which, I mean, I kind of like the idea of, you know, even on Zoom, backing away. It becomes distracting if you're just going back and forth, but tie it to the content. And yeah, as you talk to her, even get closer as if you're talking to us. I think that would be helpful also, because, you know, that way it's not just you framed the same way the whole time, but you're actually getting closer. And especially as you're encouraging us to help, you know, some kind of, you know, arms open, hands open kind of thing, I think would really benefit you at that stage, just to underscore what you're saying. I would say don't overthink it too much, because otherwise it becomes very robotic. But it's just something to keep in mind, because I mean, the homeless, they're begging, right? Their hands are out to you. So you're asking us to do the same thing. And that's a kind of motion that would underscore it, as long as it doesn't come across as being too staged.
Makes sense.
Do you want to give it another shot?
Okay, sure. So it was a very cold winter night, and my couple of friends asked me to go out and feed the homeless. And initially when I thought about it, when I heard what they were saying, I was just really scared. I just felt in my head, I'm not ready yet. You know, there's people are dangerous. They might hurt me with the needle. So I kind of just want to step out. But then I just thought about it. I really want to help to some extent. So I decided to overcome that fear and just go out on the street with them to feed the homeless. And we went out with a package and all the stuff we bought from the store and ready to give it to the homeless. And initially I was still pretty not open enough because I didn't know how they would respond. And I was in my head just thinking, should I just be more protective? What should I say to them? How should I do with it? And eventually I began to be more open. I began to talk to them, connecting with them, just hearing their stories, really understanding what's happening to them, and simply just being there for them. And there's one lady who really touched my heart, and she lost her job because she got fired and because she had an issue with her ex-husband, and now she became homeless. But for her, she never lost hope. And even though she's on the street, and she's still taking care of the people around her, and she made a beautiful bookshelf with some books on it so that people can read books. There used to be a garbage area, and she just made it to a beautiful garden with flowers. And when we're about to leave, she told us something that I would never forget. And she said, you know, sometimes when people pass by, they don't want to make eye contact with me. But you doing so really makes me feel human again. And that really touched my heart. And I hope all of you can use my experience as a way to maybe see if you can do something to help with the homeless or anything that can help people feel better, those who are in need, give them something. Thank you. Is it better?
All around, it's like, yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I have tears in my eyes now.
Yeah.
It's you allowed us to see a little bit of what's underneath, like, you know, the real Ron with his emotion and how he feels about it. The way you did it, like you were able to slow down during the speech. Your movement seems very natural. The time when you slowed down and your voice became a little bit different were exactly the time where it needed to be. Everything was authentic. And maybe at the beginning there was a little something that needs to be polished, but at the end you really got it. You got into the groove, and it was yeah, I felt it. I was with you. I could see that woman. I could see those homeless, and I could really feel myself how you felt at that time. Thank you.
Yeah, and I felt the gestures were so much more natural. I thought they really underscored the point of your story. So I thought you incorporated that really well, because yeah, it was, that came from the heart too. You didn't think about it, but you kind of let your body do the talking, but it came out very naturally, but it underscored your story. So great job.
Thank you. One thing that stood out to me is Birgit, when you said basically, it's like, even though it's a kind of a screen, you can still use your hand gesture in that screen. That's something I was not focusing on because I thought it's like a Zoom, you know, you don't need to do much hand gesture, but actually, yeah, you can actually show a lot of hand gesture, but even with the small window box. And then Tony's kind of feedback on just really getting to that emotional kind of component. Towards the end, I was trying to tap into that moment. And that helped a little bit in terms of triggering that emotion that I had back then when I was in that moment. And initially, like, I was definitely exaggerating a little bit, like, you know, I was very scared. So kind of like trying to have the contrast a little bit bigger.
I thought it worked. I didn't think it was too over the top, actually. I thought that was good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any feedback for Ron? Going once.
I think I just have to say what an incredible job you did. I was amazed about how well you incorporate all the feedback that you just got a couple minutes ago to really elevate your speech. And you're absolutely right about how you use your body movements in telling your story. That was one of the things that stood out to me the most, was just like how well you utilize the space. And that's something that's so challenging, especially when we're talking about a Zoom meeting, when the space that you have is so limited, but you still utilize it really well. Your story was extremely captivating. I was like into it the whole entire time, and the way you use your emotion into your words with your pacing, your tone, your movement, all that really helped me feel the emotions that you were trying to convey throughout your story. So I just want to say great job. That was inspirational. You did really good.
And I think that this is Lorraine. I think you should have a longer pause after she says, "It really made me feel human." Pause longer.
That
And
could
then
actually be your
continue on.
ending. That could actually be your ending, and put the call to action slightly beforehand, because I think that's a really powerful ending line. Just, encouraging other people to go out and work with the homeless, give to the homeless, and then tell that story. I think that would really nail the ending.
Thanks.
All right. So how about, I'm going to start picking on people. Nate, how do you feel about going next?
Sure, why not? Let me just see how much of the screen I can get into.
Can you see the timer?
Yes, I can. Do I just start?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience traveling to my friend's wedding a few weeks ago. One thing you should know about me is that I'm very direct, so I'm going to tell you the truth. I had some reservations about attending this event. Small gathering or not, it would require me to leave my home for several days, 4 whole days. Now, if this was 2019, no big deal. But it's 2020, and most days I only leave my house to buy groceries or walk the dogs. But this is a really close friend that I've known for over 13 years, so I decided to put on my big boy pants and attend this event. There's a lot of planning that goes into taking any trip. First, I had to find a dog sitter. I have 2 dogs, a Shiba Inu and a French Bulldog. Their formal names are Sir Thomas Rupert and Sir Isaac Buckley, but I lovingly refer to them as Rupee and Buckles. Fortunately, I have a very reliable dog sitter, my 12-year-old niece, Sophia. She's great, walks them, feeds them, the works. Her prices have increased a little bit recently, but it's still a good deal. Once the dogs were all squared away, I had to pack. Packing for me is always a challenge because I'm very serious about my appearance and I like to plan all of my outfits out in advance. Let's just say I ended up taking 10 different masks with me. And that's kind of my end. So I guess it's part of the speech. I don't have a good ending for that.
That's actually pretty awesome. Tony, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, so Nate, great, wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us. So I'm going to ask you actually, how do you feel? What would you like to improve in the beginning of your speech?
I mean, I think it's challenging for me to do the hand gestures in the way that feels natural, especially because I don't know if it's the position of my screen, but I can't, even if I'm moving my hands, you can't really see a lot of the movements. So I guess, I don't know how to like get past that.
So you're self-conscious about your hand movement?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
I think that kind of comes to from photography, because the closer you get to the camera, the bigger that is. So, sometimes you see pictures of people on the beach and, like you're taking a picture of them from the water and you can also see feet. Right, exactly. It's kind of like my hand becomes bigger than my head, and I know it's not. So I think sometimes that has to do with the angle. But so go ahead, Tony. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Please jump in whenever you want. And so Nate, what I'm feeling is that you know, in the story you're telling us this is what happened to you, and how do you want us to feel about it? What is it? What is that? What is it? How do you want to affect us as your audience?
I guess to me, the story is just about, you know, it's challenging times given COVID and the whole situation. But even despite those challenges, I was still able to participate in something that was meaningful.
Yeah,
I guess it's kind of my
so
message.
why would you tell us that story?
Uh, I don't know. I just feel like that's not something that we hear a lot these days.
Uh-huh.
So I
So
thought it
it's
was
something
important.
special, right? That should make us think. We've been taking for granted that we can just go to a wedding, to an event like this, no problem. But today it's different. We're in the pandemic, and look all the work you need to do. You need to prepare for the dogs and everything else. You have all that stuff to do. So that all that stuff is really charged emotionally, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel about having to find a place for the two dogs?
I mean, that was definitely a challenge. I was going to be away for several days, and with me working from home, they're used to me being home with them like all day now. So there was definitely like a different feeling with that because I'm used to having them with me all day, every day. So
And what
that
was
was
your
a little bit
first
of a challenge.
reaction? What was your first reaction when you were invited to the wedding?
Um, well, I personally had canceled my own wedding just because of everything. So I was kind of surprised that it was still happening. um, and like I said, I honestly did not really want to go because it didn't feel like I should be leaving my house at all or traveling. You know, I have to take a plane to get there. Um, but this is a really close friend, so I felt like, well, if they really want me to be there, then I should, you know, make the extra effort that I might not have for someone else.
So when we were talking about this, just the way you reacted, like, you know, oh, I had to cancel my own wedding and now they want me to go to theirs. I mean, you know, I felt it like, you know, yeah, now we're talking. So this is what, you know, we need to bring to the speech. We need to bring that kind of like, you know, realize where I am. It's the pandemic. I got two dogs. I canceled my own wedding and they invite me. And then you still go. So there's a transition here. You can take us there. It's really about how you felt at the beginning. And again, it's a transformation, just like Ron. There's a transformation between how you felt at the beginning and then you ending up actually doing it.
Yeah, awesome. And I was just say for your body, I mean, I know it looks like the camera is a little bit below you, but then maybe even use your head, you know, for some, like shaking your head about something, or, yeah, use that, because gestures aren't just about hands. I mean, you can use other body parts. You can, you know, shrug your shoulders. You can, you know, look to the right. You can kind of roll your eyes, you know, figuratively speaking. So there are other things that you can do if you're not feeling comfortable with your hands, especially on Zoom. Then there are other things that you can do, you know, just with, like I said, other body parts, shoulders, you know, head, eyes. If we're on speaker view, it's always amazing to me if we're on gallery view, how small we are. But if people are on speaker view, actually just like opening your eyes really big sometimes comes across really well too.
Okay.
All right.
So Annette, if you want to do a little experiment.
Sure.
I'd like you to start the speech again and comment on it with your feelings. So, so I forgot exactly how you start, but at some point you say, you know, I got invited to this wedding, right? And
Yep.
you got the background, like you cancel your own. So what is your feeling? Like, they invited me to the wedding. Isn't that a crazy idea? I just canceled my own wedding. And then, you know, go to the next thing. And I have two dogs, man. How do you deal with two dogs in this thing? And then, you know, go to the next thing. But tell us about your feelings while you do the speech.
Okay, I can do that. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about my experience traveling to my friend's wedding a few weeks ago. I still can't believe I even made that trip. I actually got on a plane and went somewhere outside of my house for like several days. And I'm gonna be honest, when I first heard about this event, even though she had changed it from a large wedding to a small gathering, I didn't really want to go. I didn't really want to have to leave my house. I normally only leave my house to buy groceries or walk the dog. But this is a close friend that I've known for over 13 years. And I know she really wanted me to be there. So I decided to put on my big boy pants and put my own feelings aside about having to cancel my wedding and attend this event. So, you know, whenever you're getting ready to travel somewhere, there's a lot of planning that goes into it, which oftentimes discourages me from going anywhere in the first place, COVID or not. The first thing I always have to do is find someone to watch my dogs. I have two dogs, a Shiba Inu and a French Bulldog. Their formal names are Sir Thomas Rupert and Sir Isaac Buckley, but honestly, I normally just call them Buckles and Rupee. They're actually quite a handful. So fortunately, my niece is good with them and usually available to watch when I'm out of town. Her rates have increased a little bit recently, but it's still cheaper than putting them in the kennel, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. After I got the dogs squared away, I had to pack. Packing for me is always a challenge because I really like to plan out my wardrobe and what I'm going to wear each day. And I usually bring way too many things with me, mostly shoes. But now that it's COVID, I ended up having to take 10 different masks because I wasn't sure which ones would be the best. That's it.
How you feel?
That felt better. That felt better.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I think sometimes it's just the whole internal energy because it really comes across and makes you more authentic. Yeah. Cool.
Now, I would say, like at the beginning, when you gave your speech, things had changed, like your facial expression. It felt really natural, and the way you were talking was more conversational and believable. I think part of maybe the problem in the speech is that there are some things where you don't care enough. And if you don't care enough, you don't need to tell us. So the story about the two dogs and giving it to your niece and her rate are less than the other place. If it's not really important, why do you tell us? And if it is important, what is important about it? Right? So when you make up your speech, make sure you tell us what's really important to you. Everything that feels important, and make it feel important. And if you cannot feel important, then maybe it's not, something you want to tell us. It's kind of making these kind of choices. But I really like the beginning and how you were present and conversational and telling us the story about having to go to that wedding when you cancel your own. I think that was powerful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Tasha.
Can I,
Go ahead, Andy.
yeah. So Nathaniel, I just wanted to really quick just dovetail from what Tony was saying about the facial expressions. When you were talking about your dogs, the first time you ran through your speech, you looked really happy about that, and I thought that's when your facial expressions were best. But when you gave your speech the second time, whenever the parts where you felt emotional, you felt a little vulnerable, we saw that as well. But when you talked about the dogs, you just it felt like you tried to coast. So to Tony's point, is that part really important? So that's definitely one thing to think about. So it was kind of interesting that you had those facial expressions good with the dogs and okay in the second speech, but then when it came to the other parts that you were emotional about, you showed much more emotion the second time around than the first time around. So definitely let loose on how you're feeling throughout the entire speech, because I mean you the natural part's there. So to what Tony is saying and what Birgit is saying, just let it go. I mean you got a baseline. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
All right, Tasha, do you want to go?
Sure, I can go. if I can see Janet. If you got to the end of your life and you could say, yes, my life was a success, what one thing would you be referring to? Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I want you to ponder this question because this is a starting point to writing your own history and leaving a legacy. So what does it mean to leave a legacy? I was thinking about this question when I went to a wake. It was a wake of a fellow Toastmaster named Art Labrie, who was with Pro Masters. And there was about 200 people in the crowd. 40 of them were Toastmasters. And when they were asked to share their story about art, almost every hand went up. Oh, I gotta tell you about the time we were in Baja, we were late, we were lost, and we couldn't find our car, and we didn't know what we were gonna do, but Art had this great idea. Oh, let me tell you about the time I had to call Art. It was 3 a.m. at night, and he was the only one I could count on. He was the only one I could count on to bail me out of jail. And so it went on and on. Oh, he taught me about art. He taught our class and he just gave of himself. All these stories were about art. And what I learned from it, and in that experience, I never cried and laughed in one event. And what I learned is that there is a way to leave a legacy. People may think it's about having a lot of money or having a building, but no one talked about Art's money or Art's or his building. Sorry. I could go on, but I see the red.
Well, we did say even the part of a speech is fine. So looking forward to hearing the whole thing. So Tony, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, I can do that. So yeah, Tasha, thank you so much for bringing up this speech. This is, again, a very emotional speech that you're bringing up. And you did very well. But again, it's like, with Ron, we sing like the tip of the iceberg, and there is so much more beneath it that you can bring to the surface. And it's up to you how much you want to bring. But even when you start the speech, it's about thinking about our own ending. That's heavy. That's like, think about, yourself dying. It's over. Life is over. And what is the legacy you're gonna leave behind you? That's really deep thinking. And then as you move on into the speech, like your story, it's a real story about someone who died and left a wonderful legacy. Not money, not material things, but stories told by his friends. And when you read that story, you can go as far as you want. You don't need to have the brakes on. I'm sure you can put yourself back there at the wake, listening to the stories, and feel again how you felt at that time, and share that with us if you want. When you do a speech like this, it's always a choice whether you want to let it go and cry and have other people cry with you, or whether you want to be more restrained and not cry, but still tell the story. But in any case, the feeling inside is the same. You got the power to show us as much as you want of what's there. You can control it, but it's there. And I think when you gave the speech, it was kind of like at the surface a little bit, and not the real total experience. And that's what I'd like to invite you to do. It's to go to the total experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have to echo that. I mean, and I thought like some of your gestures were absolutely perfect at the right time, you know, the one time. But I felt like you let go a little bit more when you're talking about, oh, and there was this story, and then there was that story. And at that point, I felt like, at least from your physicality, you let go a little bit. Before that, it was very much, okay, I'm saying one, so I have to point to one. Yeah, it happens. I do it. But yeah, because you seem to let go of your body a little bit more, make it more natural. Because I really liked where you said, yeah, and then there was this story, and then there was that story. And you became more animated throughout that. So I think almost going back to Tony's point, like, do you want to be more reserved, or do you really want to like go down to the emotions? And I felt a little bit of both, actually. It's kind of like, first at the beginning, you're okay, this is going to be very even keel, and then you got more emotional the more you talked about, well, we actually laughed about it. You made it a little bit more about the celebration of life. And then actually, I would even move more forward as you get more emotional, almost start backwards and more forward as you get more into it, because it almost seemed like you were doing the opposite. But then I think something was going on with your screens too. But yeah, when you became more emotional, you almost withdrew from us instead of the opposite. But yeah, but I like where you're going with it from a physicality point of view, very much. Okay. Going once, going twice, and then we'll have you do it again. All right, I don't see any hands, so go for it, Tasha.
If you got to the end of your life and you can say, yes, my life was a success, what one thing would you be referring to? Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I want you to ponder this, because this is a starting point to creating your own legacy and writing your own history. I thought about this when I went to a funeral late last year of Art Labrie. He was a fellow Toastmasters with Pro Masters. And in the crowd, there was 200 people. 40 of them were Toastmasters. And when it was at the time where they asked people to share their Art Labrie story, almost every hand was raised. Hey, I got a story. Yes, I want to tell you, oh man, Art, he was awesome. We were in Baja one time. We were lost, but I wasn't worried because Art had a plan. Oh, let me tell you my story. It was 3 a.m. at night and I was in jail. Art was my one phone call. I have a story. I have a story. Even I had a story. I had to be at that wake. There was nothing stopping me, because for me, Art, he was always had a positive word or positive lesson or positive saying. I didn't even know he had cancer until he died. I'm gonna leave it at that.
That was good. I actually liked, even when you were thinking, your hand just kind of kept going. I thought that was really supernatural. But that was actually really good. I mean, even though it was a pause, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but your hand kind of kept going. And what I also liked is when you were talking about the stories that you moved side to side, it seemed very natural still. Because I think sometimes we're all afraid to move side to side when we're in Zoom. So I thought that worked really well. And it seemed a lot more natural than the first time.
I didn't get closer, but I wanted to try that suggestion that you had. So I'll try that the next time I give it.
Cool.
And Tasha, if I may, this was wonderful. I really love it, especially at the end. One thing, if we had more time, we would do it now. But one thing you could do is really ride the wave of emotion. And what I mean by that is like when you start the speech, to not do anything. No movement, nothing, simply starting to talk. thinking about the end. What are you going to leave out there? And let the emotion coming in and carry you. Carry your voice, carry your movement, do everything for you. You got it. You got this.
Thanks. It's really helpful. And I'm actually brought back to that moment. So I will use that.
Thank you for sharing this. It's a wonderful story. Thank you.
All right, Daishi, are you ready? Oh, I see Kathy raising her hand. Oh.
I can go next or after the next.
I think we've got Daishi, and we'll do that because I promised.
Okay. Great.
Birgit, this is Lorraine. I'm gonna have to leave, but Tony's gonna time instead. So
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining,
Thank
Lorraine.
you, Lorraine.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, everyone. My name is Daishi. I'll be giving a portion of my speech about overcoming fears. So here it goes. Ose, ose, ose. I scolded at myself with the Japanese words meaning push, push, push. As I tried to keep up with the morning run, I saw all my classmates fly by me. Then a tree root snagged my feet and I fell into the mud. Blood dripped down my knees. Everyone stopped and laughed. I was the only overweight kid in my hometown of Shizuoka, Japan. Not only that, I had a medical condition that made it harder on my knees to run. Even after moving to America, I fell behind in PE class in elementary and in middle school. And in high school, I discovered swimming, which was a sport I was able to tolerate, but again, it was a way to run away from running. In college, I discovered the regular workout gyms. I went in by myself, lifted a ton of weights. I felt good. But anytime my friend said, I should go for a jog, I cringed like I was allergic. After moving to San Francisco, I got a 24-hour fitness membership, went regularly, felt great. Then COVID hit. Everything closed. Everything. Except for one thing. And that was a street called the Great Highway, which is a straight, narrow strip of asphalt that lines the west side of the city. And the city closed it off to traffic, but opened it up for pedestrians, bikers, rollerbladers, and runners. Now, I hated the idea of having to run for exercise, given that my entire life has been dedicated to running away from running. But I was feeling restless, so I laced up my sneakers and I just went outside. I put 1 foot after another, 1 foot after another. And over, I felt that I was moving. Wind was blowing in my hair, music on. I was jogging. I kept going until I realized I couldn't stop. Well, I did stop. 2 streets down. It was pathetic, but then again, I felt like my heart was about to burst out of my chest. Now, what it dawned on me was I wasn't dead. I felt great. I felt like I was alive. I kept on going back to Great Highway. I saw the arcs of the street lamps lining up the straight road, illuminating the foggy weather of the Sunset District. I treated every block like it was a mini marathon. 1 more block, 1 more block. And over time, I realized that I was doing it. I felt like death, but I was alive. And I'll pause there.
Awesome. Okay.
Birgit, you want to start?
Sure. It's always a Tony class, right? I really liked it. Actually, it was so funny when you're like, okay, I wasn't dead or running away from running. I mean, you had some great moments in there. Yeah, I think you're actually very conscious of what I call the Harry Potter invisibility cloak for the hands in Zoom. Because you can't always, on certain virtual backgrounds, it just kind of disappears. So I thought it was good in that you're very, you realized that very much of what was going on. I do feel like your gestures seem to start from the elbows. Like you did a lot from the elbows up, but it wasn't really your arm engaging, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all doing it, right? But yeah, because I felt you actually had some really good gestures that really underscored what you were talking about. But yeah, it did start from your elbows. So that kind of, it's like you didn't allow yourself to do some things like that. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Or yeah, my hair is in the wind or whatever. Yeah, you don't come across as somebody who, I mean, it wasn't very, the movement was not choreographed. It came very naturally to you is what I felt like. But yeah, you're missing out on some things because I feel like you were kind of stopping yourself from doing that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and even in a chair, you can move around a little bit. So
I'll sit on the edge. Maybe that'll help.
actually it works really well. And yeah, sitting on the edge of a chair also makes you sit up straighter, although, I mean, your posture is great. But yeah, if you sit on the edge, it does make you stand. And then we can see more of you from the waist up, depending on how much room you have. But yeah, I would just encourage to make it, in dance, we always call it a full body experience. Even when you're doing tap, it's not just your feet. We like to think it is, but I thought that was a great job.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, really good speech. And my question to you, though, to just to make it more interesting, to go a bit further with it, is how do you want us to feel at the beginning, and how do you want us to feel at the end, and what is the difference?
I think the main message I want to convey in the beginning is feeling a sense of a lot of empathy in not being able to do something or having something that you're self-conscious about. I don't think it's necessarily about like a pity moment or something to feel sorry for, but something that the audience could really connect to, something very relatable. And at the end, really seeing that transformation to say, wow, I can go through that transformation too. And so I think the main message of the speech, which in the full totality, I want to convey that sense of you can also do it, here are the steps.
Excellent. And that's what I see in the speech as well. The way you talk about your experience at the beginning, it's for us to share your experience with us so we can feel with you what it's like to be overweight, to fall, to have blood, and so on. And then at the end, it's like you said, the transformation. You've been able to go beyond your obstacles, your internal obstacles, to do something you would have never done before. I liked the transition, like when you start talking about COVID and how it affected you and how it forced you to go in a different direction. I thought that was a wonderful transition. I think, following the advice from Birgit, and also bringing even more, when you talk about yourself in the past, being overweight and so on, to take us even more there. What did it really feel like? Was it a feeling of humiliation? Was it a feeling, what kind of feeling was it? And why is it important? I mean, for us to understand what's going on here. How do you make us feel empathy for you at that point? And then for the transition at the end, it's like, you can take it different ways. It may be like an element of surprise. Wow, I was able to do this. Or it could be, see, if you persevere, if you're not afraid, you can do what I did. It can go, in different directions, but I think you have to be clear on the directions and take us there.
Great, thank you.
You want to give it another shot?
I do if time allows, although I understand it's 7:32.
Let's go for it. That's why we're doing this.
Okay,
we'll
great.
Extra 5 minutes.
Ose, ose, ose. I scolded at myself with the Japanese words meaning push, push, push. As I tried to keep up with everyone else in the morning run, I saw my classmates fly by. Then a tree root snagged my foot. I fell into the mud. Blood dripped down my knees. Everyone stopped and laughed. All I wanted to do was catch up, but every day I felt like I was just falling behind. I was the only overweight kid in my hometown of Shizuoka, Japan. And I had a medical condition that made it harder on my knees to run. Even after moving to America, I didn't feel like I was with the group. In PE classes in elementary school and middle school, I was still falling behind. It was in high school that I discovered swimming, but it was a tolerable sport, and it was something to dodge my fear of running. In college, I felt like I was in with the group. I Went into a workout gym. I lifted a ton of weights, felt good. But anytime someone said, Dash, let's go for a quick jog, I cringed like I was allergic. And that feeling of being behind came over my head again. In San Francisco, I joined the 24-hour fitness gym, went regularly, felt great. Then COVID hit. Everything closed. Everything. Except for one thing, and that was a narrow, straight strip of road on the west side of the city called the Great Highway. The city closed it off to traffic, but opened it up to pedestrians, rollerbladers, cyclists, and of course, runners. But I hated the idea of running for exercise. After all, I have dedicated my life to running away from running. But I was getting restless, and I tied up my shoelaces and just went outside. I put one foot over another. And over time, I found myself, wind in my hair, music in my ears, jogging. I was going. Well, I couldn't be stopped until 2 streets later, although pathetic, I felt like my heart was about to burst out of my chest. But I didn't die. I felt great. I was alive. And I kept going back to the Great Highway, looking down at the narrow strip of road, the arches of the stoplights illuminating the dark fog of the Sunset District. Okay, and now I'm gonna pause there.
Nice job. I liked how you definitely got more natural, and you shrugged at one point. And what I thought was actually really cool is when you were talking about lifting weights. I don't think you even realized it, but you made fists.
Oh.
So, I thought that was awesome, right? Because you said something, and then we're lifting weights, and I could see that there was and that's what makes it work, because it came so naturally to you. I would almost go from kind of, even from your body energy, go from lower key to, they keep talking about the runner's high, and I still run away from running. I don't run, but I've heard that there's this thing called the runner's high. But almost like you actually seem to gain energy at the end, even more. So I think you can make that contrast a little bit more. But I thought a lot of those things that came out of your body that weren't choreographed, it just happened, and it really complemented your storyline.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, very good job. And I thought, at the beginning, one more thing maybe is to think about when you announced, like, you were overweight and that you had a knee condition that kept you from running, to use that kind of as a punchline. Like, to take us there, like I was running, push, doing my best, but everybody was fine, and then I fell in the mud and everybody was there, around me laughing. I was overweight, da, da, da. And if you do that, it's going to totally change, the beginning, and take us to that place where, oh, wow, that's why. And then we can feel that moment of empathy for you. It's kind of like packing it.
That's great, thank you. That's
thank you.
Unique, yeah, very useful.
So do we have one more?
I'll try.
All right.
Go for it.
All right. Pandemic or not, none of us know how long we'll be here. My husband would share his dream that he wants to pass through life and touch other people in a way that brings a smile to their face. So after he's gone, they'll remember that they had time laughing together. Life is all about connection and people. I've realized in my work and my career that I can never do things alone. I'm a member of a team. Well, during COVID, just today, my daughter called me from Truckee, and I could tell right away there was something upsetting her. I said, Kels, what's up? She started to let go, and she said, Mommy, one of her girlfriend's ex-boyfriends had died from an overdose. I was at a loss. What could I share with her? I just listened. I just tried to connect. She believes in a lot of karma, my daughter does, and she felt guilty that she had maybe shut this young man off, and she wasn't there for him. She has a heart of gold. And I said, Kels, just share that good karma with him, wherever he is now, to his mom or whoever. On another token, recently I connected with a friend, a colleague that I haven't worked with in 10 years. We got on the phone, we were chatting and laughing. how come you're not retired yet? Next thing I learned, his 27-year-old daughter was diagnosed with ALS, ASL, Lou Gehrig's disease, and maybe she has 2 or 3 years to live. The story is, in a matter of 5 days on GoFundMe, they've raised over $100,000 to get a van to help transport his young daughter. We don't know how much time we have. Every moment is precious. Connection and people and caring, that's what really matters. I have a BFF, and she's 11 years old. She puts a smile on my face. She makes me live in the moment. Together we find joy in the small things. We don't know if we'll wake up tomorrow. Whether it's COVID or not, we have to look for opportunities to connect, to live that dream while we're here, and really care about each other as we work and live and laugh. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm going to start, that's all right?
That's fine.
Okay, so Kathy, I'm thinking this is a great speech. There's so much into it, and I think this is something that that can help us, everyone here, talking to Zoom. When we talk to Zoom, it's very hard to latch on to someone. We talk to a screen, to a camera, not to someone directly in the audience, and I think that's affecting all of us. And I think because of that, sometimes we don't get across the point that we want to get across because we're not talking to a real person. We're talking to a bunch of people we can hardly see, like a gallery. So for this one, I'd like you to try again, but sometime to really talk to someone. Do you have like, who's your best friend?
Probably my husband.
Your husband is your best friend? Okay. So can you tell the same story to your husband?
And let me just jump in on one more little piece, because I felt like your shoulders were up a little bit. I feel like you're kind of shrinking into the screen. So yeah, I mean, feel more comfortable. It's okay. Just, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders. I think that'll help, because you looked a little meek this way. And actually, when you just kind of rearranged yourself, that comes across as being a lot more confident.
Okay.
Kathy, what's your husband's name?
His name is Rod.
Rod?
Rod, R-O-D, Rod.
Rod, okay. So talk to Rod. Explain to Rod what you just explained to us.
Okay.
You can relax. You're not talking to strangers. You're talking to Rod, and you're explaining to him what you just explained to us.
Okay.
More conversational, easy, no worries, but make sure he understands what you're talking about. Make sure he gets the point.
Okay. Okay. So I'm talking to this little light because my laptop is not working. So therefore, instead of looking at faces, but I'm gonna look at the camera, and like you said, imagine that I'm talking from the heart to him. Okay. Pandemic or not, we don't know how long we have to live. My good friend and husband would always share with me that one of the most important things to him had to do with his impact on others as he went through this journey on life. He wanted to give others a lightness, put a smile on their face. And he felt that if he did that as he encountered people along the way, that was enough. Well, for me, that's really enough too. I scurry around and try to get a lot of accomplishments done, and I'm a result-oriented person. But in the end, all that matters is how I connect with people. This afternoon, while I was working, I got a phone call from my daughter, and I could tell something was wrong. And I really leaned in to listen. I could tell her heart was broken. I said, Kels, what's up? She immediately responded that her girlfriend's ex-boyfriend had died from an overdose. I took a moment. What can I give? What can I do? I just tried to listen. I couldn't take the pain back. I said to my daughter, you have a heart of gold. And through her tears, I said, find something in you to pass that karma forward. Put it out there. Give it to this gentleman who's no longer with us. Give it to his mom who's in pain. Moving on from that, recently I caught up with a friend that I haven't talked to in over 10 years. We were on a Zoom chatting about, when are you going to retire? A few minutes into the phone call, I learned that his oldest daughter, 27 years old, was recently diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. I said, wow, we don't know how long we'll be here. Every moment is precious. He shared with me about GoFund. I immediately went to the website and found the last name and how I could help. What I was so impressed with and touched with, and he was also, that within 5 days, he raised $100,000 to purchase a van that would transport his daughter as she lost her mobility. Wow, people are out there that care. Oh, I just saw the time. Sorry, I should stop.
Oh, wow. We didn't want you to stop. I mean, that was incredible. I think we're recording this, right?
We are.
Yeah, so if you have an
request.
opportunity, Kathy, to watch it,
Yep.
you'll see what happened. It's really amazing.
And we had a request from Joyce. She said, even if she doesn't, we had her on the schedule. So even if she doesn't do it again, she'd love to get at least the feedback. So apologies to everyone for going over, but it's great that there's so much interest. So.
Yeah, we love it. These workshops are just great. I told Tim I'd almost want to join your club, but anyway, thank you.
Don't make that an almost. Anyway.
I'll work on her.
Okay, cool. All right, Joyce, do you want to go for it? And apologies to everybody. We're trying to keep it on time, but it's great that there's so much interest. So I think that's fabulous.
Thank you so much. And is there still a timer?
Yep, Tony DeLeon.
Tony. Oh, okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and begin here. Wonderful. All right, thank you everyone so much. So this is actually a speech that I gave as part of my evaluation speak a couple years ago. So Tony and Kathy is familiar with it. I'm just going to take a segment of it, and it's just going to end very abruptly because of the 2-minute cap we have. So just letting everyone know. All right. Toastmasters. Back when I was living in Thailand, I never knew the diversity that existed in the world. I lived on a small plot of land with a big family. My parents, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. I went to school composing of Thai students and Thai teachers. This was my community, and this is how I saw the world as it existed. It wasn't until I moved to San Francisco that I was introduced to diversity for the very first time. And for the first time ever, I saw that we look different and that I look different. Being a new student and an immigrant to America, I wanted what any kid would want, and that was to fit in. I had gone from a place that I was so familiar with to a place where people didn't even know that my country existed. While I quickly made friends and assimilated to life in America, I still craved that sense of commonality. As I grew older, I connected with the identity of being Asian American. The population that makes up this group is so wide, but yet I often don't see myself represented. When we think of the term Asian, the image that first comes to mind is often one that reflects a small subgroup of this population and is not as inclusive of others. Because I did not fit this imagery, I was seen as different. The idea of fitting a certain image was reinforced whenever I went back to Thailand. As a girl, I was directly impacted and judged by society's beauty standards. There's this generalization of what beautiful Asian women looked like. The most common feature was that they had this fair, flawless, beautiful porcelain skin. It was an attribute that I saw and was told at a very young age that I did not possess. And I see the red card, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop right here. Thank you. And I'm sorry, everyone, that it ends kind of like a bummer, but I promise you the rest of it is good.
I actually can't wait to see the rest of it. Okay, I really enjoyed that very much. I also think that you have really good facial expressions. And when your eyes didn't connect with the camera, I thought it was very natural, because when we talk on Zoom, we tend to stare down the camera. And I thought that your eye contact was very natural, and then when people think, they look up, and you did that. So I thought that came across really well. I would say that you do have a little bit of the repetitive thing going, and I barely kind of saw it. So I would save some of those for the pieces that have the most impact, if that makes any sense. This was like the first time that I knew this, but then don't back it up with the small motions afterwards. Just make it very clear. If you were standing up, I'd say make that one more impactful and then make the others smaller. But on a screen like this, you could still go for that one more impactful one. And I would say, don't be afraid to touch your face, especially when you're talking about your skin. Because I mean, at the beginning, you kind of like did the little hair thing, as we all do. I love doing this in the pre-COVID days. But you can touch your skin when you're talking about it, right? So, something like that to just, it's more natural, right? I know sometimes we're told not to, but to bring out the emotion on an emotional speech. I mean, I wouldn't do that in a business presentation, but for something that talks about something like this, I think it's very appropriate. But I definitely can't wait to hear the end of where you left off.
Thank you.
Well, what I'd like to add to this is, so I'm thinking like, what kind of job do you do, Joyce?
I work in HR, so I run a public service fellowship.
Okay, all right. And for some reason, I imagine you as a real estate agent or something. I don't know why. But
I think it's a background, right?
The metaphor I wanted to bring here is that a speech is a little bit like a house. And you take people to the different parts of the house. You take them through the entrance, and this is the entryway. This is usually the kitchen. Now it's the living room. And now those are the bedrooms, and there's the master bedroom. There are different parts of the house, and there are different parts of the speech. And at the beginning, when you come up with diversity, there is diversity before, and there is diversity now. So the first diversity is diversity where you come from. There is no diversity. And so the emotion here is a little bit different. It cannot be the same emotion as the one that you have at the end. It's more like the emotion that you had at the time. Diversity? What? I don't know diversity. What is it? What are you talking about? We're all the same, right? And then slowly, come to here, to where you are now. Like, oh, wow. Yeah, there's so much diversity. I never thought about it. And look at all that. And look where it brings me. There's so much diversity that people don't even understand where I'm from. And so you take us to different places. And each of these places is different from an emotional point of view. And so it's for you to find those feelings about where you are and where you want to take us.
Cool. Awesome. I think we're way over time.
Way over time.
Cheers, I'm glad we still got to see that. I seriously can't wait to see the whole thing. So I'm actually president of the club, so I'm just going to take 2 quick minutes. to say, first of all, thank you to so many people for attending, and thank you for sticking with us also since we went a little bit over. I thought that's fabulous. I thought some of the interactions were great, and thanks also to the members that provided some feedback in addition, whether it's in the chat room or whether it was live speaking about it. Just so you know, this is not the way that we normally run our meetings, because in the RSVPs, I had a couple of people say, oh, I've always wanted to see an Evening Stars meeting. And I said, well, this is a workshop. It's not a normal meeting. But just a couple of items, and those of you who have been guests before, we don't have roles such as counter and grammarian. That being said, we have 3 evaluations for every speech, and they immediately follow the speech. So that makes it a little bit different. It's a little bit more impromptu, and we've had some really interesting times where evaluators will build on one another, and sometimes they disagreed with each other. So it's really fascinating. It's a great way as a speaker to learn, to see what some of the different viewpoints are on the speech. And we figure if somebody's really doing that many ahs and ums that it's distracting, it'll come up there. That's why we don't count that specifically. And then we do some pretty funky table topics. But anyway, so that's the difference with our structure, and it's done on purpose because it is an advanced club. But with that, I can give it back over to the Toastmaster, but I want to thank everybody for your participation, those speakers, and for stepping up to this. And yeah, it's kind of a vulnerable place to be. And Tony, my co-host.
Thank you, Birgit. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Actually, your idea to have this, so thank you.
And as the Toastmaster of the day, I'd like to thank everybody for attending and offering your opinions and your comments. We definitely welcome you back to our next meeting in September, and I know that our membership vice president will be looking for you. So thank you again for coming, and if there's no further comments, thank you so much, and we wish you good night.